Hello and welcome to the Michael Mama Show, Ancient Secrets Revealed. We're coming to you from Mount Soma, home of the Sri Someshwara Temple in the mountains of Western North Carolina. Busy 4th of July weekend. You know, on busy weekends, we get like thousands of people here. And it's beautiful, you know, all the families and the kids are laughing and playing. And I feel like, again, I've said this before, but I feel sort of like Walt Disney, you know. And then Scotty, while I was down there walking around, I had you on the phone. That was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got a feeling for what it's like on a busy day. You know.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty. Parking becomes a problem, you know. But we keep building new parking lots and stuff. And of course, the last parking lot we built, people parked in a way where they blocked the access to it. So it made it even. Anyway, and it's a funny thing that it seems like the busier we get, the more people that come, the more money we lose. We're losing money, you know, and it's like, and I understand, you know, people come and they enjoy the park and they enjoy the playground area and the hikes that they can take down to Ganga Park and like that. And of course, they visit the temple and picnic. But I don't think people realize, you know, even the money we spend on just trash collection and cleanup is remarkable, really. So we're not really sure what to do with it because the temple is short of funds. In fact, in the at michaelmamas.net, where we announce these podcasts, we have a little section there that you may want to take a look at. There's a place where you can click a link and make a donation. And, you know, we've just had all these expenses and then we're remodeling. And then the whole HVA system of the union burnout, which is where people die. And so we have to reinstall a whole new HV system, which is a lot of money. One of the well pumps burn out, which is another long story. But at any rate, you know, if you can see your way clear to help us out. And also when guests come, you know, you can come here and spend the day and enjoy the facilities and, you know, picnic and use the bathrooms and visit the temple and on and on. But, you know, do please keep in mind it's expensive to run this place. And if you could donate when you come, you know, I think to come and have a similar pleasurable weekend as you would, say, at Biltmore Park, you probably spend, what, a few $100s, Scotty?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and here people come and they basically, you know, maybe put $1 or $2 in the donation plate, and it's not working, you know. So if people could help out, that would be greatly appreciated. You know, I love doing this for people, but there's the, you know, practical considerations, you know. Also, we're looking for more help. Mount Soma has gotten to the point now where it needs to get, you know, to a different level. We need a really qualified hotel and restaurant manager, public relations people. We need more help in housekeeping. We need more help in landscaping and yard work and maintenance. I mean, there's just no end to it. And the staff that we have, they're just such wonderful people. And they're so dedicated and they work so hard. But we have to do what we can, you know, to lighten their load, you know. So if anybody's interested in coming and helping, there are multiple positions available. You can see it in the blog here at michaelmamas.net. So I think whatever skill you have, there's probably a place for it if you'd like to come. You can live here and stay in the union, or, you know, if you're nearby, or, you know, you could commute, whatever. Even if it's just during the summer and season like that, because we are we're very much a seasonal like hospitality sort of situation here, I guess you'd say, because we're up in the mountains, which is where Shiva wants to be. But when the snow is heavy and that, not, of course, not nearly as many people come as on a beautiful spring or summer day. So, if you would like to come and help out just for a few months even, there's a link that you can go to, and it's posted, but it's Marlene at mountsoma.org. You can see it on the podcast announcement page at michaelmamas.net. So anyway, think about it in whatever way you can help. I remember Maharshi used to say, people who have money give money. People who don't, how do you put it? They serve or they help. And so I want to accommodate everybody, but we just have a practical realities we have to deal with here. Okay. I did my last podcast. We talked, remember, Scotty, just a little bit about flatlining, and but I got a lot of feedback and a lot of questions, and almost like due to popular demand, I was going to talk more about flatlining. And we are today going to do that. But it's interesting because just, what was it, yesterday, I think I saw a thing on YouTube where there were different people from different religions, and they were getting in really heated arguments about their religion is right and that religion is wrong. And if you don't believe this, you're going to hell, and all of that kind of stuff. And they were passionate. I would say they were flatlining. Flatlining means your emotions get so stirred that you no longer maintain real rationality. Or if there is any degree of rationality there, the anger, the resentment, the passion far outweighs the rationality. And, I was talking to somebody just recently about spirituality and religion. I asked them, what religion are you? And they said, I believe in science. And I thought, well, my initial reaction was, so do I, But I think the interesting thing, Scotty, is that on the one hand, there's religion and spirituality. On the other hand, there's science. And in this world today, people see them as two different things. Whereas really, if you deepen your level of understanding of what spirituality is really about, and also if you deepen your understanding of science and the mechanics of creation, you realize they're two sides of the same coin. And any sort of discrepancy that appears is because the understanding of one or the other of those fields or both is lacking. There was a time when it didn't matter as much because, not that many people were scientifically oriented and faith was good enough, and they felt that beautiful thing inside which is they sense their own being, their own soul. And when they really feel into that, there's a universality there, even in the most staunch atheist, unless they're crazy, there's a sense of, the humanity and respect for humanity and love of humanity and dedication really to humanity and doing the right thing. And all those moral values and all of that comes from a sense of that depth of universality that is in fact the source of universality. It is in fact that one thing that is the source of everything. And we feel that in ourselves. And some people would call that the Atmas. Other people would call it their oneness with God. Other people would call it the soul. People have different names for it, and each different religion has a different name for it. But the more we can understand that, and the more it becomes not just a emotional thing, but something that's integrated with our rationality, the better. And in this thing I was watching on YouTube, that what happened was that people on all sides, they were flatlining. They were out of balance. And flatlining, not just in the arena of religion, and that is the truth about religion, isn't it? What I just said, that's the truth about religion. Religion, at the same time, you see, is a amalgam of two things. It's 50% spirituality, but it's also 50% cultural integrity. Different cultures have different laws of nature in the land that it was birthed from. And so it's always, in that sense, will be appropriate that there are different religions on the planet, because each religion resonates with a certain group consciousness. And that consciousness then needs to be refined, it needs to be cultured, needs to be developed, needs to evolve. And that's what a culture is. A culture is something that cultures the awareness of the people. And that's 50% of religion. And again, the other 50% is spirituality. You could say one comes from the earth, Mother Earth, and the other comes from heaven above, and it's those two things integrated that make for a religion. And so the very idea, really, of arguing about religions comes from ignorance, really. Because, you can take let's take Christianity. I think looking down at other religions from the perspective of Christianity is a lack of understanding of the greatness of what the Christ Spirit is. What is Christ Spirit? It's that one thing that's the source of everything. And Christ emerges through different cultures in different ways. So some people would call the Christ Spirit Krishna, others would call it Muhammad, other people would call it something else, but it's all Muhammad, or it's all Christ, or it's all Krishna, or it's all Shiva. And so the more we understand the depth of the whole thing, the more these conflicts and flatlining. I mean, flatlining around religion is probably one of the greatest causes of wars in history. So you can see why people get turned off to religion. But the reason they get turned off to religion is because the understanding of it, the relationship with it that people have, is too superficial. And it creates polarization, where really the purpose is to create unification, oneness, harmony. Oh boy. I've had, and I've mentioned this, I think, in previous podcasts, but I've had the opportunity particularly when I first came to this area 20 some years ago. I remember a conversation I had with a Baptist minister, and I guess he had heard of me. And when we bumped into each other, he said, "Oh, so you're a Michael Mouse?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "What's going on here?" And I said, "Well, here, what do you mean here? Do you mean the Asheville area or Buncombe County, Western North Carolina? What?" He said, "No, here." And he got to the point where what he was talking about was, who was I and what is this thing about Hinduism, Veda, and so at first he was very polarized. But the more we talked, these guys, I'll tell you, I've had that experience not just with this one Baptist minister, but really with a handful of Baptist ministers. These guys are, to my experience, have been deep thinkers. And spirituality is an arena where you don't get all the answers because you read a book or whatever, and so now you know it all. No, spirituality, it's ever deepening levels of understanding of what you already know. And these guys were so wide open. And it went in that conversation with that first Baptist minister I talked to, in the course of that conversation, it went from feeling sort of a very distinct polarization to him inviting me to come and speak at his church, And that's the direction the world is going. That's the direction spirituality is going. That's the direction religion is going. So it's all about, it's not about the thing. It's about your relationship with the thing. In fact, it's not about things. It's about your relationship with all things. That's why they call it relative. The relative. This isn't the absolute, it's the relative. Things are relative. And so as your understanding of things deepens, your relationship with things deepens, and you realize it's not about the thing. It's about your perspective. It's about your relationship with the thing. And as people evolve, as they mature, their relationship with things evolves. It makes you think about that, what a Socrates quote, the only true knowing is knowing that you know nothing. Because if we hang on, white knuckle, what does white knuckling mean? Flatlining. We hang on to the concepts and things that we know to the point where we compromise the truth of it. And we freeze our level of understanding of it. And that's the truth about religion, you know. And so when this person told me, oh, you know, what religion are you? And they say, oh, I believe in science. That's great. Now all they have to do is deepen their understanding of science. And the deeper we go into the understanding of science, we realize that, you know, Newtonian physics, as fabulous as it is, isn't the whole story. We get into this arena of quantum mechanics, and this arena where everything is coming out of the same one thing. And that's, what is that? That's the physics of oneness, you know? Call it whatever you want. Krishna, Shiva, Christ, doesn't matter. It's about understanding. Understanding. It's not overstanding, it's understanding. And that's what it's all about. I saw a church. I love these church billboards on this one particular Baptist church I drive by when I go to the grocery or whatever. And they keep changing their billboard signs. They're always great, you know. And the one that's up now says, life without God is like life without water. Now, I often, when I go into Waynesville, it's, you know, to go to Lowe's or whatever to try to get whatever it is we need to help maintain Mount Soma. Things are always happening. And so I often go with the site foreman, Brian, and I always ask him, you know, what do you think that means based on, you know, what you know of my teachings? Because Brian took this job. He didn't have any understanding of Mount Soma or any of that, you know. So I tell him a little bit about it, and then I kind of ask him with these Bible quotes, you know, what he thinks they mean. So what is that? Life without God is like life without water. Well, just from what we've said already, the foundation of existence, the source of life, it's the unified field. It's that one thing that feeds and nourishes everything. It's water. It's like water to a plant. Without it, the plant doesn't exist. It's just that simple. You know, really, when you understand the mechanics of creation, it is just that simple. And when you get into the physics of it, you see, we have a right and a left brain. And some people are going to be more intellectually oriented. Some people are going to be more emotionally oriented. That's fine. But nevertheless, there's an integration there that needs to take place. That's what evolution is about. And it's not about, oh, okay, you know, I'm integrating more with this side or that side, therefore I'm more emotional, therefore I'm more scientific or rational. It's a deeper thing. It's a physiological thing. So that even if you're a deeply emotional person, you're not flatlining. Your emotions are rooted in wisdom. Now, a word of advice, how do you deal with people that flatline? You know, you're talking to somebody and something comes up and you could have even said something innocently and you just triggered them and now they're off and running. How do you deal with a flatliner? What do you say to that, Scotty?
Carefully.
Yeah, carefully, tactfully. And one way is to keep a distance. Now, what does that mean? What if you're in a family member that's a flatliner? Well, you don't have to divorce them, but you have to be careful. You have to understand when because what is flatlining? It's out of balance, when people go out of balance emotionally, really. And so you become sensitive to the nature of that individual. And when they're going out of balance, what's the best thing to do in that moment? Stay away from them. Because when somebody is flatlining, there's no amount of reason or talk I mean, you can be compassionate and understanding, but even then, that's so easily misconstrued as patronizing, you know. So give them their space, you know. There's some people I know that just they flatline all the time, and I still love them. I still care about them, but I keep my distance. And that's just self-protection, really, you know.
Well, Michael, one of the things that we used to do when we were talking about like in sales situations where it's almost like you could use those techniques for this too is to have them. I want to make sure I understand you correctly. Could you explain exactly what you mean, you know, and then let me see if I understand what you're saying, you know, and restating. And then so
it depends on how it depends on how far down the rabbit hole they've already fallen.
Right.
At some point, maybe you can help reel them in to a balanced state. But, you know, oftentimes even something like that could trigger their flatlining even more, you know. So like you said in the beginning, Scotty, carefully. You deal with them carefully, and you just have to feel into the moment. And how do you deal with it when you're flatlining?
Yeah.
Stay away from them. Stay away from other people. You don't achieve anything other than aversion when you flatline and direct it to other people. In fact, all you do is elicit their desire to stay away from you. And it compromises their opinion of you. It compromises, you don't accomplish things by flatlining, you compromise things by flatlining. Everybody flatlines from moment to moment. So it's not about, though we do our best to not flatline, it's not about not flatlining so much as it's about what? A healthy relationship with our flatlining. When we're flatlining, we don't direct it at people. And one way you can really tell if you're flatlining, this is not the only way, doesn't apply across the board, but if your emotions are directed towards that person, in other words, there's a blaming there, it's their fault, or it's your judgment of them, they're the one that's wrong. And that's not constructive in most cases. Generally, it's destructive. So it's better like, oh, we have this situation. If you do need to talk about it in the moment, oh, we have this situation. How do we deal with it? And avoid anything that sounds like you're blaming. Blame is like throwing gasoline on a fire.
Well, it's interesting though too, is that like lately I've heard of a lot of you know, people that were polarized getting back together again with, like, you know, the pandemic caused a lot of polarization of vaccines and this and that and arguments and people like dividing, not talking anymore. But it's interesting to see that you're hearing more and more about people starting to come back together.
The sooner a person can overcome flatlining, it's a sign of a more evolved state. Some people, once they get a judgment, they will not, cannot, are physiologically incapable of overcoming it. And I've seen some unbelievable rationalizations when something is presented to them down the line. It could be 5 minutes later, it could be 5 years later. But when they're presented with something that is like, oh, you know, they were mistaken. But what do? They spin. They spin things however they can, because you see, people get identified with this. Their sense of self-worth is about having to be right. And for them to admit that they were mistaken or wrong, it feels like annihilation. It's existential destruction from their perspective, you know? And so they do whatever they can to spin a situation to justify it that they were right. And that, why is that? It's because there's no real deep sense of self. Their self is all caught up on the surface of what their perspective was, and that's truth. And it's this whole expression, in fact, that's common is, oh, that is my truth. more often than not, it's not your truth, it's your stuff, it's your issues, you know? So these things are very challenging to deal with, but really they're critical to our own individual evolution and also the evolution of the world, and is all founded in a deeper sense of self, the Atman. The Atma is the deepest level of our being, where we become one with universality, and we all are already one with universality, but become awakened to that level. We start functioning from that level. We start functioning what? In harmony with nature. It's so simple. It's really so simple in principle, but to live it, profoundly challenging for most of us, you know? Yeah. All right. Unless there's something more, Scotty, I think that does it for this week.
That was good.
Okay, everybody. Thanks for listening. Do consider donating to the temple. You have the link. And if you're interested in coming and helping out, be it just for the rest of the summer or in perpetuity, drop us a line. You have the email address there, and we'll get back to you. Send us your contact information, and we'll take it from there and see if it works. Okay, thanks so much. You take care.